All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. We have an exciting success series for you today. We have two great panelists, and I'm just super excited to share with you all the nuggets they're going to give. We have Brian and Kobo with us today, very extremely successful, and they're going to share with you some power moves that you need to make for your next career move. My name is Mary Davids. I am your host for today. We are talking about taking the leap. And a lot of us get stuck in our careers and we don't know what to do next. So today's conversation is going to help you take the leap, move on to your next level in your career, up-level your career, and make some moves that you may have been hesitant to make before. Again, my name is Mary Davids. I'm a career and leadership development coach. I'm coming to you live from South Florida, where I have an HR consultancy here in South Florida where I help organizations teach their employees to become more engaged and motivated in the workplace. And I also work one-on-one with people who are struggling in their career and not knowing which next move to make. So this is the perfect panel for me to host, and it's this information you're going to get today. Make sure you take a lot of notes and get your questions ready. We have some amazing speakers. So I'm going to start and introduce our speakers for the day. All right, so our first speaker is Brian Fontenot. Brian is currently in Houston, Texas, where he just moved. He is a transformational specialist. That's a big word, transformation. I think that's important because he doesn't just make you feel good. He actually gives you the information you need to make a transformation in your career. He helps corporations and young professionals find success, reaching their personal and professional goals while reaching their fullest potential. He also helps Fortune 1000 small and medium-sized companies improve information technology services, digital advertising, marketing campaigns, sales, and revenue growth. Through his digital marketing company, Elevation Firm, Fontenot has helped create ROI-generating Facebook marketing and advertising campaigns to help 6 times revenue growth and increase sales. Through Fontenot Sales Consultancy, which is the BLF Consulting Company, Fontenot has helped companies deliver and execute sales strategy to close over millions in new and existing business. Brian also manages Drifter Travels, a nationwide corporate housing company that helps thousands of business travelers experience the comforts of home while traveling abroad on business. I know that's helpful for me. I travel a lot. He also is big on philanthropy, that he believes that's a core value, and his 501c3 nonprofit supports retention, development, and graduation of talented minority students who participate in a year-long mentorship program. Brian is one of our phenomenal speakers today. He's going to give you some great tips. Next up, we have Kobo Teddy. Kobo is known for being an outside-the-box thinker. This way of thinking he has developed from a young age, where he kind of, pushed the envelope, and that has helped him to excel in business and in life. No matter what role he's in, Kobo exceeds performance expectations, proven by his many promotions and accomplishments with his current employer, Mastech, where he currently teaches coaching and leadership essentials to management. Kobo has worked for Mastech over the last 9 years, but during the first 5 years, Kobo was promoted every single year. He did that by using some career strategies he's going to give to you today, but also making sure that he knew who to talk to, knew the right people, and the power of yes. Kobo briefly lived in Dallas, Texas, where I learned he became an avid Cowboys fan. He won't tell you that, but I know we have that in common. We talked about that yesterday. He was a community outreach chair for the Young Professionals of Urban League chapter in Dallas, where he launched a how-to program, which still is thriving today. He moved to Austin, Texas, also continuing to work still for Mastech, where he now serves as president also of the Austin Area Urban League Young Professionals chapter. I'm so excited to introduce to you our phenomenal panelists today. So Kobo, I'll turn it over to you so you can tell the audience a little bit more about you and how you're going to help them today reach their career goals.
All right, so before we need some clarity, I am most certainly not a Cowboys fan. I am from Washington, D.C. That is not what we're going to do today. But aside from that, I appreciate the intro. Thank you very much. But no, I am from Washington, D.C. That's where I was born and raised. Actually went to undergrad at University of Maryland in Bowie State, got a degree in communications and media management. And you can say that first leap that I took was actually after I finished undergrad, because I really enjoyed music. And I was trying to figure out how to get into music, even though I had a degree. So I was like, well, I'm going to go to school for music and music engineering. So that was the first leap, one of the first leaps I took, and moved to Orlando, Florida to go to school for audio engineering. And then once I completed that, I had to take another leap and determining where I wanted to go. And it was in between New York and Miami, and ended up getting a job at a major recording studio in Miami and worked there for 2 years and got a lot of experience, worked with a lot of artists and a lot of big name people, and was able to promote that career because of the ability to say yes in times of need and when individuals needed things. And that segued into moving into Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta and I started with the company that I'm with currently now. And once again, somebody asked me if I was open for a position. I was like, yes. And as you mentioned, because of me being able to interact with people and learn what was needed, I was able to move up extremely fast. And that then thus moved me to Dallas, Texas, where you claim that I'm a Cowboys fan, but maybe not so much.
I thought that's what you said. I thought that's what you said.
It might have been a breakdown with the format of sound. But anyway, so I moved to Dallas, started with the Urban League in Dallas, was able to do some things and promote some very good community engagement there. And because, once again, the ability to say yes, moved over to Austin, Texas in another position, another promotion, and became the president here. And in that, for the Urban League, for the Austin area Urban League Young Professionals, not only was I able to get our company to be profitable in the region, which had never been done before, but also was able to grow the Urban League Young Professionals to a place where they've never been. And right now we're teetering on the line of being a large chapter when before we were almost obsolete. So the growth continues.
That's major moves. I also want to remind you guys to make sure that you are tuning in on Facebook Live as well. I'm putting your comments there. The UL Jobs Network Facebook page, make sure you hop on there and put your comments, like and share that as well. I want to tap in a little bit more, Kobo, to embracing the ability to say yes. You touched on it just a little bit, and I think that was tied to your saying yes to moving and starting some new roles with the organization. But just, I think that takes courage. So can you talk to us just in a few seconds, what kind of courageous thoughts were in your mind before you said yes to making those moves?
Okay, so I think you touched on something when we spoke yesterday. I don't do this by myself. I am not a genius, even though we like to think that we know everything. I'm clear that I do not. And one of the things that's been key to me being able to say yes and determining whether it's a good decision is I've always had a strong steering committee around me. So throughout my years, I've had a lot of good friends and individuals who always tell me the truth. They don't give me any type of BS. They tell me exactly what I need to know, as well as my family. So whenever it comes to a decision that I am teetering on or I need some insight or some feedback on, I go to my steering committee. So I'm like, hey, these are the pros, these are the cons. What are your thoughts? And I allow them to give me information. And once I get that information, then I make a sound decision based on the feedback that I receive from them and, of course, the feelings that I have about the opportunity. And to this point in life, it has never steered me in the wrong direction. So whenever I've made a decision, it has always been a positive outcome because of those individuals. So that courage comes from, of course, being solid in the decision because I have some backing and some people who have experience and knowledge beyond my own and a perspective that's beyond my own. So once I do decide to make that decision, it's a good one and I'm comfortable with it. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't been nervous about these leaps because you're generally doing something that you've never done before, i.e. going to school for music when I had no music background, or moving to Dallas, Texas. It was hot. When I interviewed, it was 4 days of 102-degree weather. Never been there before in my life. They told me it was 45 days of 100-degree weather. Crazy when I interviewed, but long story short, it put me in a position. And later on, I found out, and a lot of these decisions, that there were things going on in the background that I was unaware of, and people were trying to move me forward because of the communication or how I had presented myself in other facilities. So that ability to say yes is definitely something. And there's also some feedback that I received from VPs when I would ask, how do you move up? What is your advice? And a lot of them would say, do you have the ability to say yes? When they ask, can you do this thing? Do you have that ability to say yes? And, oh, sure, I'll travel. Or yes, I can do that. Or sure, I'll take on that project. And I think one last piece before I let you go is I think that doesn't mean to overextend yourself, but know within yourself where you have the ability to say yes and put yourself in a good position to be able to grow and learn.
That's perfect. I think, so what I pulled from what you said was it matters a lot that you have a support group and a group of people who can give you sound advice, so you can make a conscious decision. And that's what helps you to build that confidence. And I think that's something that is missing sometimes when people just try to make decisions on their own and then not bringing in their support group, because those are the people you're going to call crying, if you feel like it's failing, right? So let me bring in Brian. So Brian, we know you have a lot of amazing things that you do in your business, with your nonprofits, different ventures that you have. And I definitely want you to share with the listeners some power moves that you've made, but also give them a further detailed background about you and your business and how you've gotten to the point you've gotten to so far in your career.
Yeah, well, I'm going to first start with, I'm not a Cowboys fan as well, so I'm thankful to be joined by Kobo on that matter. Texans all day, but a little bit about myself and my journey. Really, I call it a journey because your career is a pathway, and it's something that I still consider that I'm still on the journey for. It started for me out of college, going into what I would consider as kind of my dream job. I worked at Apple in sales, and I worked in the sales division for education. I got promoted. It seemed like every 2 years I was getting promoted to a new position because, like Coppola, I was taking every opportunity that was afforded, and I was constantly building relationships and partnerships, which I think is key in your career always. You need to always have advocates on your side, but you also need to be building advocates and people that you make a relationship with and you work with. But from all those opportunities that were being handed to me, I was very grateful for all the things that I was being able to take advantage of and opportunities put before me, but I still felt empty. There was a side of me that was missing. What was purpose? And I felt that as I was working during the day, I was missing opportunities to really find my ways of giving back, which is the key to my purpose. And I also had aspirations that one day I'd be able to have more control of my time and being able to use my time as I would like to see it more fit rather than being confined to a certain schedule. These were two driving factors that for me allowed me to start testing what would that do if I was able to control more of my time. When I was in college, people could say I was entrepreneurial, but I was constantly testing what things do I like to do and what things do I don't like. Because if I can figure out real quickly things I don't like to do, I can find a way to structure my life and doing the things that I really like and enjoy with the most passion and energy. I took in opportunities to learn photography, learn video production, learn marketing, all these things. And after the culmination of all these experiences, I took one day to start writing out my goals and saying, what would my dream life look like? If I had to look 20 years from now, what do I want to be doing? What does that vision for my life look like? And so I started working on a pathway of how do I work backwards to make steps today to get to where I'm trying to go. And from those pathways, it was things that I'm currently doing now, where I was wanting to start a foundation to give scholarships back to students because I was thankful for every person that played a part in my life and opportunities for me to go to school and provide, all kinds of knowledge and information. The other pieces was I really wanted to build a marketing company that would be able to help companies and brands as I come across all these small businesses that had great ideas, but kind of didn't have the ways of people knowing all the great things they did. And so as I was able to kind of start testing and trying things during all these years, it eventually allowed me, I guess you could make a courageous leap, but God knows I'm stubborn. So eventually I finally made the move into doing entrepreneurship full time in the midst of fear, because I don't think that when you do anything new for the first time without a lot of unknowns, there's going to be fear, but you just move courageously through it. And as I continued to find successes in this, it allowed for me to continue to, what I would say, be in a mode testing, because I don't consider that my life is complete yet. From a bio, one thing that I'm not is bored, but I constantly find new ways to test new things and what I consider taking my life and control of my life in the way that I'd like for it to go. So I'm constantly recommending that people to find opportunities after work to go do things, go to networking events or go to places and particularly get into some interests that you didn't know that you have or ones that you do have, and see if you like this, because that's the only way you'll be able to make the next leap in your career is if it's going to a job or starting a business or anything, or even if you want to go back to school to get an education. You want to know and have a vision for what is it that you want, and you want to constantly test and try different items and different ways to see if this is something that you could sustain doing. What I consider my life right now, a lot of people say busy, but I honestly love the things that I do. So for me, it doesn't feel as much as work because I've been constantly testing my life to figure out what can I do that I'm passionate about, that I work for, and that ultimately God's blessed me to have some skills that I can do well in this area.
Brian, that's phenomenal. I like the try and test method because that helps you kind of cope with fear. I want to remind the viewers to make sure that you're voting on the poll. The question is, what has prevented you from making your own power moves? So make sure you go over there and vote so we can see, you know, what is holding you back so that the panelists can help you to answer those questions. One of the things that you touched on, Brian, was doing things after work. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about, and I know you all are too, because you're actively involved in your community, is volunteerism. I think that is a phenomenal way to test and try your abilities without the pressure, I guess, of feeling like, you know, it's all on me and this big spotlight on me and I'm going to fail. Volunteerism is a great way to kind of put your feet to the fire and do the things that you would like to do and see if you need to make adjustments. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I'd say after work is one time, but also even on the weekends. And the fear that you have really comes from the unknown. You want security, right? Security means is that you're going to have a paycheck that comes every 2 weeks or a week or once a month at whatever kind of, you know, time frame that's been set. It's been set on a contract that you're signing for employment, so you know that. But when you do things like entrepreneurship or taking a new career, you don't know if one, you don't want to have the imposter syndrome. You don't know if you have the ability to do those things. Secondly, you don't know if it pays well. Third, you don't know if you really could do it for 40 hours, 50 hours a week. And that's a real serious question you have to ask yourself, because when you think about the amount of time that you have in a day, you're going to spend 7-8 hours sleeping. In between Monday through Friday, you're going to spend another 40 hours plus working. So you got to really love what you're going to do, because it doesn't really give you that much time elsewhere. And then some of the other things that you may like to do, like watch your favorite TV series or play sports or play video games. To do these things extra, it's going to take a somewhat sacrifice on some of these other things you may like to do. But the payoff is, for long term, it's going to be beneficial when you talk about life happiness and even life expectancy, because you're not hopefully being in a situation where you're stressed.
I like that you touched on the time management piece, because it's big sacrifice to try and test and do what you love to do. Kobo, what is your, can you just give us, I know this wasn't really part of our list, but I'm glad that we're talking about the importance of time management, knowing how to stretch yourself, what you can and cannot do, and understanding that sacrifice is a big part of making career power moves. So Kobo, can you give us your insight, your quick insight on, you know, what sacrifices you think need to be made when it comes to managing your time?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Brian. I think when it comes to your time, I think the getting to the core root of what you're trying to achieve or your beliefs is number one, because then you know you can trust your instincts about what you're dedicating your time to. Okay, but if you're all over the place or you don't have a certain direction, then it becomes more difficult and you're not sure, and then you're scatterbrained. You move left, you move right, and you don't necessarily have that direction. So getting to that core belief or that core goal that you're trying to achieve, whatever that may be, seeing that first. So as Brian mentioned, he said, I wrote out my 20-year goals, or I wrote out my goals. So he may not have known the steps to get there, but he knew that that was his goal. And I think when you keep that vision, the steps begin to appear and they make themselves clear. And when it comes to time, once you have those things embedded in your mental, when you do things that are outside that scope, it's almost like you can feel it. You're like, yeah, I feel like maybe I could be allocating my time towards something better. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this right here. I could be allocating this time to that. You actually like physically feel like, I feel like I'm wasting my time right now. Like if you sit in front of Netflix, you're like, yeah, so I just spent 3 hours watching a series. Right. To start a new business right now. You know what I mean? You may have been able to do those things, and you can feel it internally when you drive towards that. But I also think that, once again, it's also about who is around you, because people who are around you are going to tell you, like, hey, you're doing a little too much on this, and is that truly what you want to do? And that help, and once again, that support system, truly that community is the one that's going to help guide you, even when you're questioning the things that you want to do. And time management, because they're going to let you know if they're holding you accountable to that. And having people around who hold you accountable is extremely important.
So I want to share with the viewers the poll results for the question, what has prevented you from making power moves? So we had an even results process for the options of fear of the unknown, which Brian talked a lot about, fear of not being ready, and the risk of it not working out. So not being ready and not working out. Not being ready goes back to that time management and knowing what you can and cannot do, and preparation is key. And then risk of it not working out when you actually do the things that you want to do. So I'll pass it on to Kobo or Brian for just a quick tip, your one quick tip on when you are unsure about, how things are going to work out and you're fearful that it won't work out, right? The unknown, the fear is that you're going to fail, right? What one tip could you say you can give someone to kind of move on in spite of the fear that there's just going to be failure, this is going to suck, I'm not going to get that job, or I'm not going to be able to, get that client? What's the bounce back for them?
I'll jump on that one first. So I do think that the preparation, as Brian mentioned before, is extremely important. So I put down like beating people to the punch. And what I mean by that is ensuring that you have the knowledge base, or you've done your research on whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go. If you've done some research, did you go back and see what are the steps that you've seen other people take? Historically, how has this presented itself in order to get to that point? And then do you have that knowledge base? The other thing is also that fear of not knowing. Everybody has that fear, but essentially you got to know and have the confidence within yourself. A lot of this is within, because if you don't get that client or you don't get that thing that you were aspiring for, that just wasn't the time, and it's okay. But if you still have that goal and that viewpoint of what you're trying to achieve, and you stay true to that, as I mentioned to you before, your win is not always your win. You think that something's going to happen at this time, and that's not necessarily the time that it's supposed to happen. Sometimes it aligns, and sometimes it doesn't. But if you stay true to that vision, and that vision that you have, you will get there. And then next thing you know, you're like, yeah, I thought it was going to happen this time, but it ended up happening 2 years later, or it happened 6 months later, or it happened the day after. The one thing that I've heard from a lot of successful people is when you're at that door before you're going to get to a level of excellence that you've never seen before, is when the journey is the hardest. You're sitting there like, oh man, this is for the birds. And majority of people throw it in the trash and they quit. But that one person who stays true to that vision and that goal, they take it to the next step. Now everybody's asking them questions about, how did you get here? How did you do it?
Your win is not your win. Listen, guys, tweet, share that out. Your win is not your win. Great sound advice from Kobo. Brian, you have insights on how people can bounce back. How have you bounced back from things that you thought were going to work out the way that you envisioned it, and all of a sudden it crumbled before you, and now what?
Yeah, so there's always beauty in the madness. There's no such thing as a straight line to success. Everybody's a 10-year overnight success. So essentially, when you're looking at trying to get to where you're trying to go to, and you can look on Instagram and you see people that are doing exactly what you want to do, happy life, you have to realize that along that way, you have to make mistakes in order for you to get there. Mm-hmm. So you're going to go through bumps and bruises. If you're going to look for an opportunity that's going to come for you and have no mistakes, that's not humanly possible. Only one person crossed the earth and did that, and he'll come back for us one day. But as for today, you have to focus on, what am I doing that's keeping me moving forward? Use positive motivation. I like to listen to a lot of YouTube videos and stuff in the morning to really get my mind focused on conquering the day, because a lot of what happens to you, you can't control, but you can control how you respond to it. And your response is more indicative of how far you want to go or how much you want to achieve success. Because ultimately, if you want to make that change in your career, you need to be locked in to what steps you need to take in order for you to make those changes. And along that way, as you make those mistakes, you'll learn things that you needed to learn in order to be successful. I remember one time I really wanted this sales role, and I was not ready for it. I had no idea I was not ready for it. So I ended up going through and taking another job that gave me the skill set that I needed, that a year later, when I actually got to that role, I was so thankful that I went through a detour, because I didn't have the phone skills I really needed to be successful in that role. And I would have been destroyed and distraught the first 3 months, where I ended up conquering the role. So you never know that your detours are actually probably planned in a way for you to be successful ultimately to where you need to be. So I'd always say is that find ways to find positive affirmations. Mm-hmm. Focus your mind and focus your energy on the positives of what's going on. And don't ever let any mistake be an opportunity for you not to learn. Because as long as you keep focusing on the vision and don't let roadblocks stop in your way, you're going to reach your goal. And as Kobo said, your win is not your win. but you'll get there when it's time.
You will most certainly get there. And even to piggyback on what Brian said, I think every opportunity, as he mentioned, first of all, mistakes are only what you think they are. And mistake is nothing but an opportunity to learn. But I do think that sometimes you're in positions that you didn't necessarily, quote unquote, want to be in, but you have to look at it mentally like, what am I here to get? Like, I'm here to get something, as opposed to, this is the worst job ever. I can't believe I'm still here. Now, there's some nugget that you're supposed to be receiving that maybe you possibly didn't receive yet. And what are you there to get? So even if you're not in the place, quote unquote, that straight line, because as Brian mentioned, there's no straight line. It's a zigzag all day. But what are you there to get to grow? And as he mentioned, you know, in that one position, he got some things that allowed him to move to the next position. And that has happened time and time again. To give an exact same story, when I got out of school for audio engineering, I wanted to work at this big time recording studio. And I had that in my mind, and that vision was in my mind, and they didn't call me. And I was like, oh, well, you know, but I was like, I'm going to work there regardless, but they didn't call me. So some little rinky-dink studio called me in Miami, so to speak. And I was in that studio and I was working there. I was like, I'm just going to do the best job that I can do. Worked in that studio. And 2 months later, the big studio called me, right? So back to what I was saying, like I wanted it to happen at some point in time, but it didn't happen until the other one. And went on to work at that studio. Unfortunately, I was successful being on Grammy-nominated albums, having my name on albums, et cetera, because I stayed true to that vision at that time. Like, I'm going there. I don't care what anybody tells me. That's where I'm going. I just don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I'm going. So Brian made some great points.
I like that, Brian, you both of you mentioned making lateral moves. And I read this book when I was in college, Up is Not the Only Way. And I think that's important. When people think about power moves, they're like, yeah, I'm just going forward. I'm moving forward. Yes, you're moving forward. But sometimes you need to learn what's happening to your right and to your left for you to be prepared to be successful and when you're moving forward. So the poll results are in. The viewers are saying, you know, there are some leaps they want to take, but they need some help and some guidance. So the most votes went to 40%. What kind of leap of power move do you want to take? Start your own business. So both of you are business owners. You started your own business. You probably had some bumps in the road. If the viewers kind of want to know, you know, how do I know if I'm ready to go full-time into my own business? How do I know that I'm prepared and equipped with all the knowledge I need for it to run a successful business? You both have leadership roles, things that you've done in the past. So how do you, what are some tips that you can give to let them know, hey, these are some things I need to do while I'm in the workplace, and here's some things I need to apply if I decide to go full-time in my business. So Kobo, I'll let you take the workplace concept, because many are probably working and they want to move out and start their own business. So what things can they do while they're in the workplace? And then Brian, I'll let you answer to what things they can do if they want to create a list and say, hey, this is what needs to be done before I actually move out of the workplace. So Kobo, you can go first.
I think one of the things to be aware of is probably you have a lot of skill sets that you underestimate. So a lot of things that you need in order to accomplish that task or starting your own business, those things you do on a day-to-day basis. The second thing I would make sure that is pointed out is, like, I think it's extremely important to do your research. When it comes to starting a new business, there's 15,000 million people who have tried to start that business. And how were they successful and how are they not? And if you can interview people, you have resources like SCORE, or you can interview old executives that have been successful at various things for free. There's people in your business or people who you work with. And I think another thing that's extremely important is, as a community, you have way more resources than we think. You have a lot of people that are within your bubble or outside of your bubble that you can ask for feedback and get that information from them. I think that is a time to be extremely vulnerable and say, look, I'm trying to do these things and I don't know how to get there. What is your experience and how did you get there? And utilize those resources to allow you to say, okay, I think I need A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Do your research, do your backstory, and then figure that out. Like, for instance, now I'm in the cusp of I started a business when I was in Atlanta, but now I'm potentially planning to start another one, because the career that I have currently, as Brian stated, that fulfillment, it's now, it's time to move on and transition to the next place. And now I'm doing all the research while I'm working. You know what I mean? While I'm getting a quote unquote steady paycheck and doing the research. So by the time that I put that in motion, those wheels will be rolling and I can be committed to it. And I'm not afraid to say yes when it's time to take that leap. So doing that proper research, as you do have these resources, allocating time to go learn. Go to a conference, go read a book, go read 75 books, go ask 7 million questions to 7 million people and get the information and begin to formulate your thoughts. So as you articulate to someone else, it's very easy for them to understand. One thing that I always challenge my team to do is if you have a vision or a goal or something that you're trying to achieve, whether that's starting a new business or not, write it out like it's a children's story.
Oh, that's nice.
Literally sit down and write out as if you were reading to a 5 to 7 year old child, because the level of detail that you have to give to them so that they can visualize it is something that allows you and your mindset to begin to play over and over again. And as you explain that to someone else, it becomes very easy for you to tell the story about where you're going to go. And once that story becomes ingrained in you, then the pathways, once again, the little steps that we talked about before, that vision that we talked about before, they begin to make themselves appear because you have that mindset. You've done your research, you've utilized your resources, and now you truly have a vision that's easily articulated to the next person because you've ingrained it and you took that time to see what that story looks like when you're winning in that next step.
Oh, that's powerful, Kobla. I mean, people, if they always say, if they can't understand the vision, how can they buy into it? It's confusing as heck. They're like, this is confusing. I'm out. I don't have time to add this to my brain cells to try to figure out what you need me to do. Exactly. I want to just mention Damascus Alexander. He raised his hands. He is listening live. If you have any questions, make sure that you put them in the chat, guys, so that we can see them. Put your questions in the chat because we definitely want to make sure you get the most out of your time today with these amazing speakers. And we want to make sure that they answer all the questions that you have about growing within your career and making your next power move. So utilize that chat to drop your questions, the Q&A. We will constantly check to make sure that we are answering any questions that you may have. So Damascus, go ahead and put that into the question chat box if you have any questions for the panelists. So Brian, I talked a little bit about, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your business and how, you know, how you started out. I know you talked a little bit about in your intro why you decided to make that move. You kind of sat down and looked at your plan and where do you want to be. But when you finally got into it, it's like, okay, I'm going to tell my family and friends, I'm going to tell my network, this is happening. I'm launching this business. You know, what is something that you can say that came up that you had to overcome early on in your business that kind of made you think, okay, I'm not really sure if I want to do this, or let me make some adjustments on where I need to go in building my business?
Yeah, it's a lot of adjustment. There's a mindset you have to have as an employee, and then there's a different mindset you have to have when you're an entrepreneur. And a lot of it comes down to good plans. I really love that Kobo said, if you can't, like, talked about explaining it and the level of clarity you need to have, because you need to have that level of clarity in developing a team. So a lot of people think that the entrepreneur life is just, you start a business, the customers come, money flows, and it's vacation life, IG, you seeing me on the boat, catching flights every week. And yeah, that happens maybe 10 years in. It's not for everybody overnight success. You have to really make a good plan. And so some of the things I came across is just finding the right market. A lot of people start businesses and they don't really fail because the people can't do the job. They don't fail because the company's not good. They don't fail because they don't have good branding. They fail because they fail to find an effective market to solve. They fail to find that problem that somebody says, hey, I'm not willing to deal with this. Here's some cash. I trust you can do this. Go do it for me. And you can repeat that 1,000 times. You can repeat that 1,000,000 times. And if you can do that 10 trillion times, you'll become a billionaire. That's the secret. It's a business, really. And so the harder part was figuring out, who do I serve? What are services I want to serve? What do I even feel like doing? I do something. Oh, you know what? This takes too much time. I don't really like doing it. It's gotten me right back to the place of where I feel I'm spending way too much time. And initially, when you start a business, a lot of people talk about no sleep and all those things, or work 80-hour weeks. I don't advocate for that, but I definitely think that it takes time for you to figure that out. So I made many stumbles of trying to attract clients, and clients didn't come, services didn't work, so I changed the services. Then I got back to my drawing board, looked at my plan. Well, I really want to accomplish this. But then I started thinking, who am I even serving? Businesses serve people. And if I don't figure out that piece, then I won't have a business to grow. Then I started finding some strides and success, started having clients and started realizing 3 people said the same thing, like, man, this really helped me. like this, like your business came in and solved an essential need for me. Now I started thinking, my head started turning. Oh, okay, I'm getting to find my pathway of growing my business and getting to what I want to do, because I'm starting to realize, who do I serve? And initially that's hard because we live in a microwave generation. You know, if you ain't texting me back in 3 seconds, then obviously you don't care.
Get on it.
If I catch you on Instagram liking post and you can't return my phone call, now we're really in trouble. And so essentially, you know, people don't really see the effort that goes in, because they can see it on a post, but they can't see the hours you spend at night.
That's right.
The weekends, or the missed maybe events that you didn't get to go to, or hey, we're not going out to do happy hour today. Why? Because you have to do those things. And it's hard. It's not easy to run a business, but it is easy once you find your stride and figuring out the way to do things. I recommend it. I don't recommend it for everybody, but I do recommend that you at least try it, because it gets your mindset thinking of problem solving. Yeah. And the closer that you can figure out how to solve problems and how to think of situations, rather than expect somebody to tell you how to do this, then the faster you'll find success. Because ultimately, entrepreneurship is just solving a big problem.
Yeah, I agree.
That's good. That's very, very good. It's very, very good. I like that. Test and try. Solve the problem. If you can't solve, what you're doing is redundant or something, you're pulling out of the sky. You think that you have a problem, but you really don't know how to relate to people who have that same problem, or the problem's not big enough, right, to where enough people need you to solve it. Then you're going to be in a pickle, and you have to really be honest with yourself and say, you know what, this is not working, or maybe I need to change how I communicate with people, or be more effective in my communication. Like Kobo was saying, break it down to where it's easily for them to digest what you're offering, what the expected outcome is of that, right? And then going back to the drawing, not being afraid to go back to the drawing board. I definitely think that is a crucial element that people have to get, especially if they're trying to start their own business. Not being afraid to go back and rethink your strategy. And that's okay, because every move you make is perfecting the outcome in the end. Like, you have to just go back and digest what worked, what didn't work, and then make some moves and make some adjustments, and not being afraid to do that, because you're still winning, because you're learning through the process. You're learning how to do it better and make sure that you have the right outcome for the people that you're trying to help. We do have a couple questions that came in. Brian, Kobo, you want to share something?
Yeah, I think it's also important. Brian made some excellent points. It's also, we kind of talked about that time management before. And this can be very difficult when you're becoming an entrepreneur, because you're an independent person and you're like, oh, I could do it myself. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to know what is outside of your wheelhouse, what is draining your energy that you do not need to be putting your energy toward. There's somebody else who's good at that. Let them do it.
Outsource it. Yes.
Do not try to do it yourself, because you will end up doing 700,000 things, spending 700 million hours. And those are the ways that you begin to lose the vision and lose that focus about where you're going, because you're allocating your time and your resources towards other things. There was a period of time, just to mention about sacrifice, there was a period of time where I literally slept 2 hours a day for 4 days out of the week. And on the 5th day of the week, I had to get rest, because my body used to cramp up, because I was lacking sleep for 4 days because of the career and jobs or whatever I needed to do. But at the time, I told myself, you have to do these things so that later on down the line, you don't have to do these things. Right? So you have to also know when you have to just make that sacrifice and saying, my goal and my vision is these things, and they are aligned. These things that I'm doing are aligned, and they're helping me to grow. And I have to make this sacrifice now, because 5 years down the line, as Brian mentioned, I'm not going to the happy hour tonight. But then when you see me on Instagram 5 years later, oh, we out here getting it. They didn't see that 2 hours of sleep you were getting for a year.
That's right.
And I think it's important for us to make sure that we articulate those things. I think kids get this glorified version of what's going on, and it's failure all day. Failure is how we learn. That's how we learn. It's failure, and understand that and then embrace it. So
definitely. Also, let me add to that. One of the things that's important too is you want to see the blockers and things that are causing you to like get into traps of things that you should be doing in business. You gotta get a mentor. Same way you get a mentor in your career, get a business mentor. Business mentor has seen so many roadblocks and taken so many L's, they can build a ship. And so they can tell you all the things that you need to not do and all the things you can like avoid. And you just take that knowledge and say, okay, this didn't work for this person. I talked to this person, it worked for this person, and it worked for this person. These are the things they have in common. These are things that were different. I know if I'm going to try it, I'll do this, this, and this, and not do this, this, and this. And now you've helped cut down your learning curve. All by using the knowledge and information that you're getting from somebody else. So it's very key to always build relationships, careers, business-wise. Relationships are how you succeed in life because the knowledge people have. You don't need to go out and struggle everything on your own.
Right.
You can learn in certain partnerships. There's certain mentors where I've realized, you know what, you know so much about this. Let's partner in business and do this. Because I clearly don't have the area of expertise that you have. And I would defer to you, but these are the things that you know I'm good at. We can both solve each other, get back maybe 5 hours of sleep.
And I want to remind the viewers, we're talking today about making power moves. Power moves. One of the things that I've experienced just in growing my business and talking to my network is we have, you know, two groups of people. The people who make moves and the people who spend so much time accumulating the information and not moving, right? They're just collecting knowledge like, okay, I talked to my mentor, I have a list, I've done my research, and they're scared to death to actually activate and do and make those moves. So I definitely want you guys to touch on, you know, the activation, but I want to have some questions here that have been coming through. I want you to answer some questions for. We have one viewer that says she's been at her job, or he's been at their job for 14 years, and they feel like there's no room for growth. And they want to stay at the company, but they want the company to view them in a different way. Meaning, you know, look at them and say, hey, she or they will be good for this role. You know, how can this person, after working there for 14 years, get the organization that they work for to view them in a way that gives them access to more opportunity? So you're good at this, Kobo, because you've been, like we said, promoted for 5 years, once every year, back to back to back. So I'm sure that you're going to be able to help her.
Yeah, so I think that obstacle presents itself pretty frequently in business. You know, when you've been at a place, you enjoy the place, but you're just reaching that quote unquote ceiling. And so my theory or my process in that is you just have to create. So it's two things. It's not just create, but the first thing is I think you should have mentors, as Brian mentioned, that you can communicate with, because people should always know where you're trying to go. I think a lot of people are like, they're in a job and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm just doing this. And I'm like, does your boss know that you want to get this position? Do the people know that you're trying to learn more? Do the people know that you're trying to grow? Because if they don't, that's probably the first place you should start. After you've communicated to those people, and those people that you have confidence in, you have confidence in them and they have confidence in you. I think the second thing is you can't let any you can't let any ceiling stop you. At my job currently, there's a lot of innovation and things that we don't do. And I'm like, this is the one thing I tell my team, I'm going to do it till somebody tells me to stop. So long story short, if you tell me no, there was a time when I would ask and they would say no. And then I would ask again and they would say no. And I was trying to get ideas that I felt would push us somewhere. And the second time I got no, I was like, oh, I'm just not going to ask. I'm going to go do it. And then if it works, I'm going to tell you about it. And if it doesn't work, you won't know the wiser. Now, you have to have that sentiment to be able to do that. You know what I mean? You got to have that internally, like, I don't care, I'm going to do what I got to do, because you know your vision or what your goal is for the greater good. What is the greater good? Is that ensuring that people are successful? Do you want other people to be successful? Do you want these things to empower other people? And how is what you're doing aligned with that? So for me, there were a lot of times where, even to this day, where I was like, my company at times is not as innovative as I would like it to be. So I'm going to make my office an innovation center. And then I put out a little proposal and I presented it and they were like, yeah, absolutely. Your office is going to be an innovation center. It wasn't there. I just created it because I was like, I'm not going to continue to do what I've been doing because I'm bored. I'm not growing. I'm not doing these things. These people do know where I want to go. So I'm going to start to create my own lane. I'm just going to create it.
That's phenomenal. I think that's really thinking outside of the box too. That is really something I think that most people, they wait for their boss or their employer to give them an opportunity, right? To do, oh, you know, we have a need for this, and give them ideas. Come up with your own ideas, come up with your own problem solving, you know, in your area that you can do within your realm, and then present that or just do the work. So we have another question here.
Mary, just to touch on that.
Yeah, sure.
Like, so as a director myself, I am engaged when my team comes into my office and offers things that we can do, and they come with ideas. That's inspiring. When I know they're thinking like that, I'm like, oh, I got a team on my hands, because I got people who keep giving me ideas. Everything's not going to work, but if every day, 2 days, somebody's coming in and telling me, hey, I got an idea for this, maybe we could do this to make us more efficient. I'm like, damn, this person on their game, let me write this stuff down. And you become a valuable asset. And as that asset, I'm looking to put you in other places that will allow you to be successful, because I see you're bringing things to the table. And I've had people say, no one else is offering these ideas, so keep them coming.
That's good. That's good. Make yourself an asset, not a liability, right? So we have another question here. I think this is perfect for you, Brian. This person says they've had a successful 25-year career in operations, but they don't have a degree. So it seems like they started, you know, they did well at the company they worked for or within that industry, 25 years successful, but they are no longer employed and they don't know what to do next. So where can they start? Maybe they don't know, you know, like you talked a little bit about you following your passion and being honest with yourself in terms of what you see in the outlook for your 20-year outlook. So can you help this person to figure out what to do next? They have skills, but they don't know what the next step is.
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to frame something about your job that somebody told me many years ago that changed my outlook on it. If you've been working at a job for 5 years and they've paid you consistently for 5 years and you've reported to work for 5 years doing that job, you're now qualified in that position to have that skill set to go do that anywhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. And education is not going to define your ability to do that job. So you are now qualified to be a consultant.
Yes.
You have the knowledge and operations to do it. The difference of somebody saying yes to you or yes to somebody else is the way you package the knowledge that you have. You actually have all the power in the world when somebody hires you to do a job. You were a sales executive for 10 years. Congratulations. You now can consult companies on how to develop their sales strategy and help building sales organizations. You've been working in manufacturing logistics. Congratulations. You're now a consultant that can help people be able to make relationships in supply chain management and help efficient deliveries of packages, items, or goods. Whatever you work in, you have a knowledge. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, what do I want to be known for and what do I want to do? You've worked for 20 years. You had an identity that you were an employee. And now you're having to recreate that identity, which is the hard part. But the beauty of all of it is it gets to be on your terms. Do you want to go back and work in that same field? Do you want to take your knowledge and say, I have problem solving, I have time management skills, I have all these other skills that can translate to another career? Do you want to go into business for yourself? The opportunities are endless. And what's harder is that as an employee, people really guided you and told you what was possible. Like you can work up to this point. You work 40 hours, you get paid this, but really take it on and control for yourself. Sit down for yourself and ask yourself the top 3 things that would make you happy in life. What does happiness look like? Then write out, what does the ideal day look like? And how those 3 things that you said that make you happy fit into the ideal day. Then within those gaps, figure out, what do I need to do? And what does my career look like to match all of that?
That's powerful. Listen, Raymond, get these golden nuggets right here. Get the golden nuggets, because let me tell you something. This was powerful what Brian just gave. And what Kobo said as well, I mean, we are just getting some phenomenal tips on how you guys can make some power moves, what to do in the workplace, and what to do if you're struggling with what moves to make next if you decide not to continue to work for someone else. I love the idea of what 3 things that you need to do that describe your happiness, but also what's your ideal day look like. So now that you are moving on to do new things, what's your ideal day? What do you want it to look like? That's important, because anything you do, you need to be happy in doing it. You need to have joy in doing it. Does it spark joy, right? Marie Kondo, have you guys heard of her? She sparked joy, meaning this is what you only have one life to live. So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today, because your career is a big part of your life. And if you want to have an amazing life, then knowing how to make those career moves, knowing what makes you happy, what you want people to remember you by is very important to your legacy in your life. So we have one more question here that came in. Middle age. Do you think age plays a role in making career moves? Transitioning out of an industry, moving up within an industry, starting your own business, whatever. Does age play a significant, does it give a hindrance, or does it help, depending on your age, on your next career move?
So I think the answer is no. And the reason why I think the answer is no is because anything that you want to learn in this day and age, you can learn it and you can get that information. I remember walking into Barnes and Noble. You know, we love to put formal education on a pedestal. Brian made an excellent point. That individual who's been working for 25 years, he has a lot of experience. And if he actually writes it down and breaks it down, there's probably a lot of positive traits and things that he can present to a company that will allow him to be successful. It's all in the packaging. So I walked into a bookstore in Barnes and Noble the other day, and I was like, hey, anything I want to learn, I can just walk in here and get it. So after I learned that trait or whatever those things that I learned, to its packaging, how have I packaged this knowledge to present myself? And then I think the third thing is the rarest trait in men or women is execution. Your point earlier, you can do a lot of things. Brian has been successful because he had an idea and he executed. He did something, he executed. So he continuously walked forward despite the negative, the bad, the drops, the whatever. He continued to execute. And in that execution, he learned the lessons that he needed to move forward. So I don't think age is a factor. I really think that one thing that our mentality has so much to do with how successful we are or not. And also even defining what success is. Because success doesn't necessarily have to be a house or money or cars. Brian once again made a great point. What are the things that make you happy? That's success. Did you get those? Are you fulfilled now? Okay, now you're successful. You may be fulfilled landscaping. You may be fulfilled planting flowers. Hey, if you're happy, to hell with what everybody else is talking about. Right. You're happy in what you're doing. That's all that's important. You know, so I don't think that age plays a factor. I think because you become set in habits, that it becomes, you have more fear. And a lot of times we get seduced by the things that have made us successful. And so when you have to break beyond that or do something different, there is a large amount of fear associated with that because you've done these habits to get you here. But similar to a lot of books, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Who Moved My Cheese, all these various books, to make it to the next step, you're going to have to do something a little bit different. But I don't think the age plays a factor. I think anyone can be successful at any age.
I agree with that. And, you know, as long as you're able to digest knowledge and do something with it, knowledge is not power until it's applied, right? Larry Bossidy wrote that book, Execution, the Discipline of Getting Things Done. That was my keyword. I make a keyword every year, and that was my keyword for 2 years ago. But execution is crucial. And like I said before, when we were talking about people accumulating information and knowledge, but doing nothing with it. And this person is 25 years knowledge, and a lot of our viewers have tons of knowledge. But if you don't have the discipline to get the work done, then you're always going to wonder, oh, what if, or be in the dream phase of your life and not the do phase of your life. So we have a couple of questions. We only have a few minutes, so we're going to keep it really brief. One question came in and said, diversity in the workplace. Basically, this person worked in the workplace and that organization does not value diversity, and that's why they left the last job. So they want to know how to approach the employer to get them to understand the value of diversity. And also, you know, and this goes to having courage in the workplace and making a move to make sure that you're comfortable where you work and that they value what you bring to the table. So if anybody wants to kind of quickly touch on the value of diversity, how that person can approach their boss with this topic, knowing that they left their last company for the very same reason.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. So it's very hard, right? What business sees and what you see from a company is they have profit loss statement, balance statement, and income. That is what every business is more likely judged by. Unless you're a nonprofit, then you're judged by the ability that you give impact in the community. But at the end of the day, dollars has to make sense. So if you want to be a change agent of diversity, I'm going to give you a really unconventional method that I think works, simply because of understanding where you are in the context. your first job is to do exceptional at your own job. Once you get exceptional at your own job, people take notice in you. When people take notice into you, that's when you have the opportunity to influence people. You get influence. They see you as a constant worker. You come with ideas. You are a positive attitude. You know, you're a pleasant person to be around. They're going to be like, wow, I want more people like you. Where can I find people? Now you have a stage in which you can use your influence to play a positive impact into diversity. So you're always listening.
Always listening, right?
So
that's good. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have another question here. Maybe Kobo, you can take this on. And then after this question, I want you guys to give your top 3 power moves. So if you want to jot those down while we're putting this next question on. Top 3 power moves that people can make right now, today, so when they're trying to elevate their career before 2020, okay? So the next question from Charlene. Charlene says she's worked 30 years as an administrative professional. She has a master's in management. She started a nonprofit, and she's trying to get that nonprofit going. So she wants to know if you guys have any feedback for her of how she can monetize that nonprofit and get some grants, maybe some resources that you can give. And she wants to eventually run that nonprofit full time. So if you can give her some tips on what next steps she can make.
Absolutely. I know for Austin, for instance, there are 4,700 nonprofits in Austin. And I was like, man, that's a lot of nonprofits. So there is a lot of redundancy in what nonprofits are doing. And I think similar to the point that I made earlier today is there's someone who is doing exactly what you're trying to do right now. And are you willing to be vulnerable to get that information and let people know I am welcoming this information. I'm looking for this information to grow. I do think, especially when it comes to nonprofit, that vision and your impact and that story is like supremely important. Because essentially you're trying to have an impact on the community. It's a non-profitable business. So why should I follow you? I know from my standpoint, at least with the young professionals, I always looked at it like, how am I creating a quote unquote, similar to a business? How am I creating a viable product that someone wants to invest in? Whether that's, me a grant, whether that's someone giving us money, so that I'm not necessarily going out to seek someone, they're coming to seek me. And how do I position the programming and the things that we're doing to make that a viable product for the community, and such a viable product that everybody's like, we got to work with them.
Right.
Do stuff with them. Or who's that guy? Or how are they doing these things? Whatever that is for you and whatever that vision is, I'm not a fan of chasing things. I'm very much a fan of attracting them. And then I'm trying to figure out what I need to do in my process that makes this something that people actually want to gravitate towards. And I like to put my energy towards that, because I do believe that there's a time that you need to go out and seek that. But then once again, how do you position yourself so that people see you as a viable product, whether it's a profitable company or a non-profit company?
That's great. Thank you so much, Charlene. I hope that was helpful to you. All right, so we're going to wrap up, but I definitely I don't want this conversation to end without you giving your top three power moves that you believe will be helpful for the viewers on what they can do to boost their career before 2020 or even into 2020. So Brian, I'll let you go first. What 3 power moves, boss up moves, let's get it going moves can people make before 2020?
First of all, make a vision. You have to be intentional with your life. So make a vision of what you want to accomplish. Second, try, fail, succeed. In that order. That's just how it works. Try, fail, succeed. And then lastly, constantly test and tweak. Go back to the drawing board. Go back to the vision. Because the more that you spend time going back to it, it'll help you say no to the things that's going to waste your time and say yes to the things that are aligned to your purpose.
Awesome.
All right.
Good stuff. I would definitely, the first thing is, so similar to what Brian said, what is your vision or what's the story? And even if you're changing career or if you're changing the dynamic of what you want to do, I think you have to be able to tell a story. A person mentioned to me one time, was quote unquote a millionaire. He was like, yeah, there's a lot of people out here with a lot of money. And if you can tell a good story, they'll give you that money. And I think that's valid. What is your vision and how vivid is it so that someone's willing to believe in you? And can you tell that story? Like I mentioned before, can you write it out like a children's book and make that extremely visible to yourself and to anyone else. The other thing is the ability to say yes. The reason why I was able to move up so quickly in my career was when they asked, can you travel here? Yep. Can you do that? Yeah. Can you go here? Yeah. Can you move here? Yeah, I can. Now, fortunately, there's some things in my life that allowed me to do that. Other people have families, other people have circumstances that didn't allow them to make those moves. But what can you say yes to, and how do you position yourself to be the person they even come to ask because of your performance or what you presented? They come to you to ask you if you're willing to come and help. And I think kind of a combination for the last one is, of course, be true to your vision, meaning your win is not exactly when you always think it is. And if it's not, because you have the vision that you prepared for, you still stay true to that, and you still drive forward, even though you're like, dang, it didn't happen today, man. I really was hoping that thing happened today. It ain't happened. And you stay true to it because it will happen, because it's in your mind and it's in your mindset. And one last one that I'll state that my parents always gave me is, man, I can live anywhere for 2 years.
All right.
I can go anywhere for 2 years.
That's good.
Be in Idaho for 2 years. I might not like it, but it's 2 years, and what am I going to gain from that experience, and how am I going to try, learn, fail, and succeed? As I added an extra word, as Brian stated. So,
not being afraid to let go, not being afraid to take the leap. These are some great nuggets that we've learned today. Taking the leap, making sure that you are prepared, you have enough knowledge, you know the right people, you can write down your own vision for your life. We have tons of nuggets that we have gotten from these phenomenal speakers, Kobo and Brian, today. Make sure that you go find them on LinkedIn or social media and follow them, the amazing things that they're doing for the community and within their own careers. I want to invite you guys to make sure that you sign up for the next Digital Career Success Series. If you enjoyed this series, this talk today, make sure that you stay in tune for what's coming up next. You can find more information at nuljobsnetwork.com, nuljobsnetwork.com, where you can get information on our next series that we're going to have. I believe it's on diversity. And make sure that you tune in, have your questions ready. Remember, don't forget to follow Kobo and Brian. Thank you so much for this phenomenal series today. I hope we answered your questions. Make sure that you share and like this and follow the NUL Digital Career Success Series, because we're trying to help you make your power moves before 2020, and we're so happy that you could join us today on your lunch period. Thank you so much, Kobo and Brian. You have anything else you want to add?
No, I definitely want to say thank you, Brian. You gave some great information, so that's awesome, brother. You're doing some great things, and I think it's important as men and as women that we 100% support one another. And so Brian's doing some excellent things, so extremely proud of you, brother.
Hey, I think everybody on this panel is doing some great things. So we wish them the best for everybody, especially for everybody that tuned in and was interested. I'm wishing the best for everyone. And if there's anything that I can do to help, reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yes, same here.
For our people.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. We really enjoyed you. Bye.